Welcome, guys. I want to start the show off a little differently this time. I know it's taken me about 30 episodes to realize we just kind of start talking without any introduction. This is the Podtendo podcast. We're not going to formally introduce ourselves. We'll do that kind of a little later. The way this show works is we start with maybe 10 to 15 minutes of a pop culture, our life kind of chat, maybe a little bit of a rant, and then we get into the show proper. So if you guys are not into this first little bit and you don't want to listen to us, you just want to listen to today's game, skip ahead. There'll be some music cue, just listen for that quickly, and then you can start listening to the show proper, and then we basically just talk about the main show. How's that for an introduction?
That's pretty good. I like that.
There you go. Look, it only took us a year to figure this out. Today's introduction. Just general consensus. I was thinking about this. Do you prefer more structured or less structured combat media? So examples, because they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? A game, say, like a Street Fighter versus Pokemon. So they're both kind of, you can play with your friends, but one is, there's a strategy to Street Fighter, but it's not the same strategy as he's using Pokemon. Versus, or like a game, potentially, say, Magic the Gathering, where there's like set number of cards and everything, and there's a strategy. Or something like chess, where there's definitely a strategy, but you might take 15 or like all my pieces but 2, but I can still beat you. Maybe that was my strategy the whole time, was to let you think you're winning. Or potentially like a TV show, say a Yu-Gi-Oh, where everything is very structured and you only have this much health and cards do this much damage. Or a Dragon Ball Z, where it's kind of ambiguous. And it's like, well, I have power level 5,000, but power levels don't really mean anything. It's just kind of like nonsense that they throw out there to kind of like talk about technology versus nature. Where are your stands on this?
Interesting question. I played lots of StarCraft, as much of our longtime listeners would know. That is very structured. However, the way you engage in it is kind of open to you. Like, you don't always have to say like, oh, well, I'm gonna do tanks and marines, only tanks and marines. You know, like, you could do a wide variety of different doing things. So I enjoyed that. But that being said, I do, for like literary purposes, it's kind of nice not knowing, oh, well, they have so many tanks on this side and so many tanks on this side, so if people have more tanks, they're probably going to win. It's kind of more interesting when they can keep it more ambitious, like you're more ambiguous and you don't really know, like, even if that means, like, let's say number of units or strength. On literary terms, I think it's a lot more interesting that way. But if I'm playing like a game, I want it to be fair. So I want it to be very structured.
All right. See, I'm not really sure. I was thinking about that yesterday, because I was thinking about just like Dragon Ball Z, for example. I remember back in the day, at one point I watched through it and I was really into power levels. And I had found this website where somebody actually went and they figured out everyone's power levels in every single fight in every single episode. And you could kind of see the running track of how strong people were. And you could say, oh, when Goku became Super Saiyan against Frieza, he was double the power level. That's how he beat him. But looking back and watching a couple episodes, I kind of enjoy it. It is like power levels are meaningless almost, right? Like, it was almost kind of what the bad guys emphasized to say, look, I'm level 5, you're level 1, I'm better than you. But sometimes the level 1 guy would have more heart and soul and strategy, and he'd still win. So I kind of like it more, again, from you said, that literary point where it's better storytelling if it's not just so structured. So really depends.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you can kind of play with it when it comes to literature, but when it comes to like games, you almost have to kind of pick a side. But I don't know, I guess even kind of the game we're talking about today, there's kind of that, they play with that whole ambiguity of like what's stronger. But we can get into that.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, like, when in terms of games, like Magic the Gathering, if we're playing Magic the Gathering, you might just have better cards than I have. Well, that's a bad example. So let's say we have the exact same decks. It's a random shuffle, so there is that kind of level of variance. It's all about the cards you have in your hand, so it is very random. Whereas a chess match, for example, we both have exactly the same pieces. We both have every single move available to us from the very start of the game, and it's all about developing that strategy and outthinking the opponent. So in that sense, I kind of like the ambiguity in like a chess match, right? Where it is fair, it's level playing fields, and all it is me trying to be better than you. It has nothing to do with the game. Whereas like Magic, for example, you get into, well, I mean, I shuffle the cards and I don't get any mana in the first pull, and I'm like, well, I better reshuffle, and I got mana, but then you may not get mana again after your like original draw for, I don't know, 10 hands, right? Because cards can be structured that way. So
absolutely, and I do agree, really in line with you, because like I prefer a more like consistent, like here's a beginning baseline, but when you take your very first step, when the game starts, that's when like you can actually show off your skills or what everything you've developed, your strategies, and you can take it interesting ways. You can try to be innovative, but when it's kind of like really up to random chance, that's when it's like, this really sucks and this isn't fair for a game. It should be very on the line of structure.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons,
at least it's going to be interesting to me.
Yeah, sorry. One of the reasons I started thinking about this too was I was thinking about like power levels in the Marvel universe, and we talked about this before. How like what's the most powerful mutant, and there are like Omega level mutants, and I'm always like, yeah, it's fun to like classify those, and it's kind of like from a tertiary point of view where I'm looking, I'm like, I have a card, and look, I have a Omega level power card, and you only have a 1. It's fine, but from the storytelling point of view, it kind of makes them just OP and kind of boring in a sense, you know?
Yeah, and to be fair, they if it's written in a book or a comic book, you can actually kind of make that go away. Like you can kind of have Krillin beat Nappa. It didn't happen in a TV show, but you can kind of see it playing out in your head. Mm-hmm. Where it's like the underdog, because you're going to root for the underdog. You want Rocky to beat Apollo Creed, even though Apollo Creed's he's the Omega level boxer, and then you got a Rocky who's this like level 3 chump, like good for a couple city blocks or maybe a community area, but I don't believe that he can compete with a world champion. And then you see him go at it, and he doesn't win, but he goes the distance. But you can kind of see like he can bridge that gap. It's just all of a sudden that gap that you perceived in your head now works against you and plays with your expectations. So then you can get excited, can root for the underdog. So I don't know. I think it's a very interesting way of doing it as long as it's handled correctly. But in a game, like for me versus you, it needs to be less. Like, I don't know. I guess it's one of those things. Like, if you can actually, like, kind of bring it close, then that guy who worked his ass off and played Mario Kart for 10, 15 years, who just got, first place, and the kid that played it for a week, got second place. You're like, well, I feel a little bit cheated. Like, he should have done worse. So, I don't know. There's a fine line, but I think in literary terms,
yeah, that was
just handle it better.
That was a really loaded question. I apologize for asking. I was just thinking we should talk about this and see where it comes up. All right, so basically it came down to it would be very dependent on the media. There's pros and cons, and they're both right and wrong in their own sense. As long as they're done well, and it creates either a good story or a fair gameplay, they're fine. Mm-hmm. You don't really have one.
As long as it's enjoyable and not like you can't abuse the piss out of it.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, I think from the literary point of view, it's the underdog is better to establish, to say you're not as good as me, but to have it just definitive, saying, I'm a 5, you're a 1, I win, that's really boring. As opposed to the interesting stories, when that 1 beats that 5, then what?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Should we get into it?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Just like chicken sandwiches, we're going to segue right into the game. That's a callback. I don't even think I said that. That was just a weird joke I made in the last episode, so. All right.
It's a callback to last episode.
Okay, Dad, I just want to finish this game. Okay, Dad, I'm coming. Yeah. I'm almost at the end. What happened to summer?
Final Fantasy. It ain't over till it's over.
Chill out, Dad.
Welcome to the Podtendo podcast, where we analyze, reminisce, and replay the glory of old Nintendo games. We can be contacted on Twitter at Podtendo Podcast, email us at podtendo@gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Podtendo. I am your Rubik's Cube Master Mick, and I'll be joined every episode by my...
co-host Chancellor Tyson.
Yes. Oh, am I still a host of the show, like a co-host? But I just am called the Rubik's Cube Master Mick?
I have no idea.
And like you're a co-host, but you're Chancellor Tyson. I thought instead of instead of co-host, I was called co-host. Like I was called like Master. Rubik's Cube Master.
Oh, that's fair. I thought it was we're co-hosts and we had our own subtitles of our massive conglomerate. But
interesting.
It's all good.
Okay. All right. Who knew? Apparently that's what happens when you just make up random nonsense and then you listen.
Expect the other person to fill in the gaps, and then what you filled in was different than something that somebody else filled in a long, long time ago.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. All right, wow. This was actually a pretty fast show. We're right into the game pretty early on. It's weird. Both must be hungover or tired or something. Mm-hmm. Today's game. Are you excited for this one?
I am.
Nice. It is Final Fantasy II or Final Fantasy IV. We'll talk about that, but right now it could be either 2 or 4. I think we're going to call it 2. Is that right?
Yes. Well, depending. We should call it 2. I played 4 technically.
Yeah. But I mean, originally.
So I guess I should ask. What did you play this on? Just to kind of preface this.
I played the PSP version on my PS Vita, I believe, is what I played it on.
Okay, so did you play the 2D style or the 3D style?
It was 2D, but it was like a remastered 2D version. I have played the 3D style before as well.
Gotcha. And I played on the DS.
Oh, okay. So you're playing 3D.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll have some slight differences, but
cool.
I get funner cutscenes.
All right. So the release date was November 23rd, 1991, with the PSX release on June 29th, 2001. A GBA, so Game Boy Advanced release, happened December 12th, 2005, and a DS remake was made on July 22nd, 2008. They apparently just love remaking this game. I'm pretty sure there's an iOS and like Apple or whatever they're called, like the iPhone versions of this game as well.
Yeah, I think so too, but it's been made so many bloody times and actually been like rehashed and revamped. You're like, why does this one only all get the love? No other Final Fantasy game gets like so many remakes and remasters.
Well, I mean, I guess there's a reason. Like, you had it on your top 10 list, so, I mean, people like it, right? People obviously like it. It's a pretty big story, so. How Long to Beat has this game at about 23 hours. I'm about, I think I'm like 6 or 8 hours in on my playthrough, so apparently the second part of this game is going to take a very, very long time. Oh yeah, this is probably part 1 of 2. Do we say that now, or do we leave it? Or 3. Yeah, this one might be a while, so... Yeah. Yikes.
There's a lot of stuff that still needs to kind of happen, so...
Alright.
Yeah.
Actual retail price was $60. If we factor in inflation, that would be $96.21. Current eBay price. I know this one from a personal experience. It's about $70 for a loose cartridge. Because I definitely didn't bought this one time. Hooray. And then eShop price, $10 on the PSN. It's not available on any... Nintendo hardware anywhere, or e-stores, or whatever you want to call them, so it's good times. Alright, moving into the development details for this title. After completing Final Fantasy III in 1990, Square planned to develop 2 games, one for the NES and one for the SNES. Due to budgetary limitations, Square dropped the NES game and focused mainly on the Super Nintendo version. Little information exists about the unmade NES game, although 80% of the game was completed when the game was scrapped. Most of these assets were reused for the Super Nintendo game. The lead designer, Takashi Tokito. Oh man.
Tokita?
There you go. Names, they're tough. First project at Square as a full-time employee was this game. Good job. He wanted to create a game with seamless battle system that had no separate battle screen and was not menu driven. And since Final Fantasy IV was not going in that direction, he changed the development teams to work on the action RPG Secret of Mana. The team was made.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the guy who started working on this game was like, nah, I don't really like where you guys are going. I'm going to go make this other great game.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Nice.
It's funny, like, most great RPGs from the Super Nintendo come from, like, half a dozen people. If you look at it, it's just like, they were like, oh, we'll just create all these games.
And then they just get inspired and like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And then like, wow, here comes an entire franchise.
Yeah, like, instead of putting all your ideas out on one project, they just kind of like interdispersed them and said, like, we'll put some here, and we'll do some for here, and some for here, and people still ripe about these games. Like, man, these guys were so great. Yeah. They must have had a really good something going on.
Yeah, or just be really passionate. I just like to understand the hardware and the actual like capabilities. Like, no, we can actually probably get away with doing this.
Yeah, I am. The team was made up of 14 people and was completed in roughly 1 year. The active time battle system was developed after Hiroyuki was inspired by Formula One racing. Watching the drivers push the pace of the other racers gave him the idea to have different characters have different speed values. The best part of the previous 3 games came together. The job systems of Final Fantasy III, the focus on story of Final Fantasy II, and the 4 elemental bosses acting as symbols for the game, as in Final Fantasy I. The theme of the game is to go from darkness to light. Spoilers! The game's original script had to be reduced to 1/4 of its original length due to cartridge storage limits. Only unnecessary dialogue was cut from the game, but some characters, depth, and some story elements were cut from the original. Most of them have returned in later ports. So if you're not playing the Super Nintendo original model and you're playing one of the remakes, chances are you have all that extra fleshed out story, which is why I'm sure the game seems like it's taking a very long time.
There is a lot of talking.
There. Okay, so now, the main question. Why is it called Final Fantasy IV in Japan and Final Fantasy II in North America? Do you know this off the top of your head without looking? Would you know this, or are you learning for the first time? Just like, I wrote these notes like 2 months ago. I have no idea.
I do know this.
Okay.
Because when we were kids, I think we actually figured this out, or one of our friends actually like figured this out, or had a magazine where they talked about this, and word spreads on the playground like wildfire. And you're like, oh, that's not actually like Final Fantasy like 2, and then our minds were blown. There's all these other games out there. Like, well, I need to play 2 and 3 now.
Oh, so. It's actually a very lame explanation. So apparently Final Fantasy II and Final Fantasy III were not localized in North America. So to keep the continuity, Final Fantasy IV became Final Fantasy II. That's dumb. I was really expecting something greater, but oh well, all right. And this remained the norm until Final Fantasy VII. So they released Final Fantasy IV, which became Final Fantasy II for us. Then they released Final Fantasy VI in Japan as Final Fantasy III, and then randomly Final Fantasy VII came out, and everyone was like, wait, did we miss a bunch of games? The story, music, and graphics all remained the same, but designers significantly reduced the difficulty for beginning gamers. They felt that since North American audiences missed out on the past 2 entries, the game would be entirely too complex. The spell Holy and the Tower of Prayer were renamed White and the Tower of Wishes. This was in accordance of Nintendo of America's censorship policies. And that's all I got for that section. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, there's this game is actually kind of fascinating. It's holds a special place for me. It's even when we were kids, it just always had this like little air of magic, and then you learn later on that it's because they had 2 other games to polish their craft before they got to this. Yep. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's fair. That would be like them now releasing them going from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 4, and you'd be playing those games and be like, man, like, look at there was like these huge changes between these two games. Well,
yeah, and just like that being able to like fine tune how like the actual like gameplay works, or like how stories actually should flow in these games. Because I mean, when we played Final Fantasy 1, and I kept kind of comparing this back to Final Fantasy 1, and it's just like they're so close to overlapping, but they're just like a next generational gap. It's pretty awesome.
Oh yes. On to the controls. Like, if I have a gripe about this title, it's the controls, which is actually my gripe about Super Metroid, so apparently I'm just becoming a control cynic. Very basic RPG controls. The overworld stays simple. Directional controls kind of moves you around. You use A to interact with the environment. Battle mechanics are basic. The in-battle menus are fairly easy to follow. You can't equip new equipment in the shops, and I hate that it's not intuitive. There's just you always end up wasting gil, because you end up buying too many shirts, and then you go to a couple of your guys and you're like, oh, I only need 2, but I bought 3, and then you go to sell them back and they're just not the same cost, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, it's could be optimized a little bit better. And there's even like the battle system. It could be better. I understand they did some of the choices for certain reasons, but my lord, some days I just feel like they just hate us.
Yeah. Oh yes, any first memories of this game? So I recall renting this game from the gas station as a child. As Tyson kind of had mentioned before, we would rent it once, and even though we knew that we had to restart it, every time we rented it, it seemed to be kind of one of those things that like was in our lexicon. Right, like how many times we must have rented this game? 24 times, maybe?
Yeah, at least.
Well, maybe 24 seems like a lot, but like probably, I don't know, half a dozen, 6 to 10 times, and just kind of kept going with it. I don't think I ever got past the Mist Dragon as a child, and if I did, I didn't get much further than that. I just remember kind of enjoying walking around and talking to people, and then I got outside and these things started attacking to me, and I was like, man, this game is like way too intense. I just can't my little brain can't handle it. So
yeah, see, for whatever reason, I remember, I think we were renting this mostly at that gas station as we did as a child, but this was right around the time that Blockbuster started popping up, and I think we actually rented it from Blockbuster and got a week at it one time. This could be just like a fever dream, but I swear that we got it from like Blockbuster, and we ended up getting to where we get just after we get Tella through the I don't maybe remember where, but I swear we got like the first crystal, because it all seems very familiar when I played my Super Nintendo version a couple months ago.
Okay.
So I think we rented this from Blockbuster one time.
Okay.
For like a week when it first got there, because it was right around the time where they started phasing out Super Nintendo rentals and in favor of N64 rentals, because that's when we first really got into Blockbuster.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, I have no memory of that. Interesting. Yeah, weird. I do remember playing this game multiple times since. Once on an emulator in college. I got about as far as I did in this playthrough, and then I have played the game I have a DS kind of like pirated cart thing that I played it one summer. I got stuck somewhere. I always get stuck right before, I think you have to go into the underworld or something like that. There's like some step I don't know, and it was back in the day before guides were super intuitive, and they would be very like those GameFAQ text-based ones that are just super annoying versus the nice like colorful picture guides that are available today. I think I even used cheats, and I still couldn't complete it. So my goal is to beat Final Fantasies 1, 2, and 3 legit for this podcast. So I'm just going to tough it out and ride the storm, Ride the storm.
Not a bad way of doing it. I swear I played the GBA version, and I hated it because it's kind of glitchy.
Okay.
and like the actual like battle system's kind of glitchy. So I just I got to a certain point, I think just past the Mist Dragon, and it was just like, nah, I'm good.
Oh, interesting.
And then I went and bought that Super Nintendo version, and I got to where you come back to the Baron and he sends you out, he sends you out to, no, it doesn't make sense. I feel like
so you got literally to the opening cutscene of the game.
Yeah, no,
right.
I got where we come back to actually like face the Baron again, and then I picked it up and started playing from this. So you or on the DS version.
So you basically got to where we were in this podcast.
No.
All right.
Later.
Okay.
Maybe earlier.
Right.
I don't remember.
Okay. All right. Well, with all of our fun reminiscing, let's really reminisce. I think the problem is our memory was a little bit foggy, is because we hadn't gone into our way back time machine. So, what year are we in? 1991. We're trying to get to November of 1991. So there's little Tyson running around farting. It's his birthday again this year. It's always his birthday. Goddamn Tyson, his birthdays. Running around farting.
Your birthday was in the middle of summer.
Yeah,
you got the lucky birthday.
Yeah, as a kid, I literally used to have like 5 birthday parties, because this friend would come over and we'd have a birthday party, and then I'd have another friend that came over and had a birthday party, and like my aunt would show up and we'd have a birthday party, and then grandma wanted to have a birthday party with me. It's great.
You got lots of cake.
But now in Podtendo, Tyson has all the birthday parties and Mick gets none. So Tyson goes to sit down and he's like, man, I had a fun birthday this year. 91. Hoochie mama. What episode of The Simpsons was playing in November 1991? It would have been, Flaming Moe's. Homer creates a drink which pushes Moe Tavern's popularity to unbridled levels. Ooh, do you remember that episode?
I do.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have been listening to this podcast called Talking Simpsons. We kind of talked about talking, like Simpsons talk last episode. And in it, there was on the commentary tracks that they do kind of discuss how Sam Simon was treated by Matt Groening and the rest of the creative staff. So the analogy was, Sam Simon is Homer, who says, hey, look at this cool thing I invented. Isn't this great? He gives it to his friend, Moe, or Matt Groening. Matt Groening then exploits it and gets rich off of it, and Sam Simon's kind of left on the outskirts being like, but I helped too. And like, shut up, Sam.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
that makes me want to rewatch that episode.
Yeah. So basically watch Homer, think of Homer as part of the creative team, and Matt Groening's kind of Moe, and you'll be like, And as this is brought up, apparently the rest of the commentator, like everyone just kind of goes silent, and then it comes back and like they've clearly in a different recording session, and like Matt Groening just isn't there anymore. So he got like pissed off and yelled at everybody, and they had to redo it.
That's so funny.
My earlier defending of Matt Groening on a Halloween episode might have been unnecessary, so apparently he might be kind of a jerk. Yikes.
Yeah, unfortunately he's never came off as a level-headed guy.
Now, Tyson does get a sweet movie ticket. He gets to take one friend to the movies for his birthday, and he's like, man, what movies can I go see? There's so many good ones. He could go watch Beauty and the Beast, Cape Fear, The Addams Family, My Girl, The People Under the Stairs, An American Tail, Fievel Goes West. What's he going to choose? It's weird that we come 30 years later and the Beauty and the Beast is still in the theaters, eh?
Yeah.
Just can't escape it. It's weird that no one's ever really talked about the fact that Beauty and the Beast has just been running in movie theaters for the last 30 years. Straight.
Yeah, it's a little suspicious. Suspicious for sure. And why are we not talking about Cape Fear too?
Cape Fear in like terms of the movie?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say like, imagine if there was a sequel to Cape Fear.
Oh, I see.
That movie needs clearly to be remade. Same with the Addams Family.
I think it was a remake. Like, I think Cape Fear is a remake. Like, the version with De Niro? I think that was a remake of, like, a movie from, like, the 70s or something.
Oh, Christ. Then we probably have gotten a remake of it, and I'm just not aware of it.
Oh, and lots of those movies that are, like, great. Like, Scarface. Did you know there was a Scarface made in 1920?
No.
Yeah, so they remade the movie back in the 80s.
But that's part of what that movie is all about. Yeah.
And now they're going to remake it. So they're coming up on the third iteration of the same film. So Hollywood's just been recycling the ideas for years, and people are just now catching on. They're like, hey, wait a second, they already made this movie twice. I'm like, yep, they're still doing it.
But we gave it 30 years instead of 10.
It's true. Very true.
Consider yourself lucky.
And then you go to watch TV on this, I don't know why it has to always be your birthday, it's just on this remembrance, I don't know, on this random day in November. You might be watching one of your favorite shows. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Step by Step, I have no idea what that is. The Jerry Springer Show started this year, and Home Improvement was top of the TV charts. So it's a pretty exciting time. The Jerry Springer Show. Jerry.
I never watched Jerry Springer.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid.
Was this the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego TV show, or like cartoon, or was it the actual like game show?
The game show. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Tell me more
You clearly remember this way better than I do.
Yeah, actually, I think I even tried out at one point. We were in Calgary, and I went to do like there was like a quiz at one of the malls, and I went and like filled out the survey to see, because if you're like fill out all the questions correctly, you might get selected to be on Carmen Sandiego Canada, and I got a T-shirt.
Oh, where you got that T-shirt?
Yeah, I remember there was that T-shirt that was kicking around our house for a while. That's where it came from, because I tried out for the TV show.
I never knew that. That's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, that's just a weird thing, apparently, that the shame I've lived with for all these years.
I guess Mom and Dad tried to push you into Hollywood.
Well, I was always just like...
He was like, nah, screw it.
I think I just always knew geography, and like I was kind of smart, and for some reason there was this like something in, was it grade 6 or 7? I was 12 or 13. There was something called like the Great Canadian Geography Challenge, and it was like a 50 question like test or something that we did, and I got it like 100% correct. And everyone's like, holy shit. Nice. And I wasn't allowed to go compete in Vancouver or something because I was like 2 months too old to qualify.
Oh.
Yeah. So apparently...
What a weird way to cut it.
So I don't understand. Yeah, I've never read geography. I don't think you can just learn geography from like touching the earth. So like I think I just got lucky, to be honest with you. But there you go. There you go, Carmen Sandiego. Back in 1991, though, other games that you could have played at this time, one of Tyson's personal favorites, Street Fighter 2, Civilization was released, Battletoads, Sonic the Hedgehog was first released, you could be playing Super Castlevania, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Mega Man 4, and Action 52. How many great games are there?
That's a ton of great games, except for Action 52.
Well, yeah. You didn't like Tiger Man?
No, I never played Tiger Man.
Right. Fair enough. And then music. Because we have to do this to ourselves. We're going to have to talk about these shitty fucking songs. And I don't want to do it. I just don't want to. All right. So, number 3 on the on the Billboard charts in 1991. Are you ready for this? Tyson, you can sing these ones. Is Cream by Prince and the NPG.
No idea.
All right.
No idea.
How about Set Adrift on Memory Bliss by PM Dream? Yes, that classic song. Oh, I'm so riveting by it. All right, and finally, the number 1 song in November of 1991, When a Man Loves a Woman by Michael Bolton. Now, I'm not sure if that's the song, but I'm going to stick with my guns, and I think that's the song. And it's when I play the music track behind it, and it's a different song, I feel like a real idiot.
Just like that one time.
Oh, man. Stupid baby comeback. I hate you. Well, now, if you had a time machine and you could go anywhere in the world, I may not go to November of 1991. I don't think you're missing anything revolutionary.
Yeah, nothing that... Like, it's a cool year that all those video games came out, but other than that, it's...
The best part of video games, you can buy them like in 2 years in like a discount bin in like a bargain shop somewhere. Save some money, so just try and get to the next one, I think. Just move on to the next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 92's better.
Yeah, 90. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what happened in 92. I haven't looked into it. We'll find out, though. We'll find out.
We'll get there.
But first, let's get into this game's story. Our story today takes place on Earth, also known as the Blue Planet, which consists of a surface world inhabited by humans and an underworld inhabited by dwarfs. An artificial moon orbits the planet upon which Lunarians live. The Lunarians are a race of beings originally from a world which was destroyed, becoming the asteroid belt surrounding the Blue Planet. More specifically, this world, there's a kingdom named Baron, where the king has started to send out his fleet of flying ships, known as the Red Wings, to attack and capture the element crystals for some reason. Unsure of his motives, Cecil, or Steve Eiserman, asks the kings about his motives, setting the plot into a whirl. What is the mystery of this world, and why does the king of Baron all of a sudden have a strange fascination with the elements? That's kind of a fun story. All right, ready for these level notes? Power through these bad boys? All right, haven't played this game in... When was I playing it? Almost like 2 months. Let's see if I remember exactly what happened. We can talk about it and see how it works. See if we had fun on this fun little adventure. Did you like it? You start off as a captain of the Red Wings. You steal a crystal from 4 warriors. I always knew that Steve Eiserman couldn't be trusted. That was my notes, because he was a captain of the Detroit Red Wings. I should have named my main character Steve. I really fucked up.
Oh, that would been so good.
Well, I thought about it afterwards, so half points? Half points. When we ask about our mission to the king, he gets angry and he sends us on a special delivery. We head to the Mist Cave with our friend Kane, and we end up in a boss fight against the Mist Dragon. So with the Mist Dragon, there's a weird strategy here, right? You attack him until he becomes mist, and then you don't attack, because if you do, he attacks you with lightning. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I'm pretty sure we never figured this out as children, right? Like, that was way above our head. So is that why we never got past this area?
Absolutely. I think we were, because you have to kind of pick up on the active battle system. Like, what happens if we just wait? You're always like, oh, no, we got to go next.
Yeah.
And if we just would have defended or waited, and I feel like that's how we got through it eventually, because one of us was like, well, fuck this, I'm tired of taking all this damage, and whenever it becomes that way, I'm only going to defend and not attack.
Yeah.
And then we just magically did it by not attacking when he was in that mist farm.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, it kind of shows the step up from Final Fantasy 1, because I feel like the very first battle in Final Fantasy 1, now I'm trying to go off many months of memories.
You're fighting Golbez.
Is they kind of, they, like, you know, he was super easy. You just basically slash him and kill him, and that was it.
Yeah.
So to actually add an interesting kind of like, oh, this is the first kind of test. Can your brain figure it out? And then we, as stupid children, we never got close.
No, not at all. But on the other side, we get to the village of Mist. As we go in, our package is actually a bunch of bombs, which starts exploding and destroying the village. We find a young girl named Rydia, whose mother summoned the Mist Dragon, and when we killed the Mist Dragon, we killed her mother. So, man, we're really dicks. Really dicks.
We're not.
So we destroyed her,
Not the nice.
killed her mom, we blew up her village, and then for some reason, like, we really want to be her friend, right?
Well, so Cecil's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
Cecil's kind of...
Or Steve, depending what you want to call. So our main character of Cecil.
Yeah. So Steve Eiserman is not a bad guy. He really just wants to kind of, like, he asked the king, like, why did we have to go murder those guys? They didn't seem a threat to me. It's like, oh, they knew too much.
Yes.
Gotta kill them. And then we come to this town, and he was just like, you have to go deliver a message. Doesn't say, go deliver this bomb. But literally, as soon as we get there, we kind of blow things up.
Yeah.
And the girl, I forget her name.
Is Rosa or Rydia?
Rydia. So Rydia's mom, just like, she doesn't come out and like tell us to stop or anything like that. We just kind of come along on Miss Dragon.
Yeah.
She sees us as basically high knights that are going to come into her town and wreck it. She kind of recognizes us for what we are.
Yeah.
So she immediately just goes on the attack, and we just kill her. I feel like all the while Steve Eiserman's just kind of a little bit oblivious up to now, and he's kind of coming out of the bad guy attitude. I don't know.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
Steve Eiserman's not a bad guy.
Yes. Yeah. No. Well, because we're also controlling him. So. So then there's like this weird dialogue, and Kane is either with us or against us. I couldn't really tell. But while we're kind of trying to save, or we're still in this village being bombed, Rydia's like, I hate you guys. Titan is summoned and separates us. We end up at an inn where Rydia is being, I don't know, she's in bed. And we're like, oh, I'm sorry that we killed your village and your mom. My bad. Guards come in to take her away because she's a summoner and the king wants her. We're like, screw you, fight them off. Rydia's obviously like, oh, you can't be evil if you fight the bad guards. And we find a sick Rosa who was our girlfriend, who came out searching for us.
Yeah, and she was crazy enough to try to travel across the desert by herself.
Yeah.
Because she's just a white mage. She's not strong enough to walk around on her own.
So right now we're trying to save our girlfriend. Makes sense? We meet Tella in a cave. Grind some of our characters up a few levels. Probably not a terrible idea. Rydia starts at level 1. And that's definitely a recurring theme of just characters starting at level 1. It's mildly annoying. And we prepare for a boss fight. The boss is Octopus Guy. That's, I'm pretty sure his official name, so...
Yeah, he's the tentacle monster.
Something.
In the... You have to go up the waterfall.
Yes.
Or through the waterfall.
Yeah. So we just use thunder and attack while Rydia heals. Not that terrible. We get to Damascus Castle, and as we get there, it gets destroyed by the Red Wings. Goddamn Detroit. Anna dies by Golbez, and Anna is Tella's daughter, who is in love with the Bard, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And who is just the worst.
Yeah, so then Tella's like, fuck you, Golbez, I'm going to avenge your death, and leaves your party, but we get the Bard now joins our party. I didn't even write down his name because I hated him so much.
Yeah. I know his name, but I'm almost going to refer to him as just as useless.
All right, I like that. So we got Steve Eiserman, Rydia, useless.
Yeah.
It's great.
And trying to still make Rosa healthy.
Yeah.
Because she's still sick. And now we've lost Tella.
And for some reason, we have to go to the Cave of the Antlion because there's an Antlion Ember or something that will cure the desert fever. So we go into the Cave of the Antlion. It's not super hard. I do always think the Antlion boss when I get here has a super crazy design. I kind of like it. I was kind of on the edge, but I like thinking back, definitely like it. The one thing that bugs me though is the dungeon doesn't have an escape route. So you get to the bottom of the base, fight this bad guy, and now you have to go all the way out of the dungeon the way you came without saving or healing, and it's just really frustrating.
Yeah, if you use one of your magic spells called Warp,
What?
it takes you, if it takes you to the entrance of each level. It uses like 50 MP, mind you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I hate freaking dungeons. So Warp is kind of like the shitty version where it's used it like 3 times if there's 3 levels, or 5 times if there's 5 levels.
Yeah. All right.
And or there's teleport, and teleport will just take you to out of the cave, which much better use.
Well then, don't I feel silly? Silly indeed. Oh, I wrote down that guy's name, but I won't say it. It's literally Bard's real name is Useless. So Useless is useless. Oh, that's fun. We save Rosa with our antlion, whatever, Ember. We leave our little driving ship that we got. We got this little kind of, I don't know, hovercraft, right? Yeah. Okay, so we got our hovercraft. Then we head over to the mountain, and we help a monk. What's the monk's name?
Yang.
That's right. So we end up with Yang, who hits a little bit harder. So now we have like 2 useful characters. And I guess with Rosa's somewhat useful.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have a dedicated white mage.
Yeah.
She heals. She can heal the entire party with 1 cure at this point.
And like
nice.
Rydia is like kind of magey, but she basically is a summoner, so she's not really a mage. So it's nice to have Yang because he hits hard.
Mm-hmm. And his kick is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. We go to Fabul, where all the monks are from. We do a pathetic job of defending off the Red Wings. Rosa is taken. Kane betrays Steve Eiserman, but we do get a boat. You know what happens when we get a boat in Final Fantasy games, right?
Yep.
Are you excited?
I am.
Oh, good.
I know exactly what you're going to.
Good. So now that we're on our boat is sunken, and we lose Rydia and Yang. So that was a short-lived boating adventure.
Yeah, and I get a fun little cutscene of a scary monster. The Leviathan comes up and wrecks everything and knocks Rydia into the water, and Yang's like, I'll save her, and like jumps in after her. And you're like, man, what a baller. Doesn't even blink. He's in there.
Noble sacrifice. A very noble sacrifice. Yeah. We awaken at Mystia. So we've been playing the game for several hours now. We've gone to the town of Mist, and now we're in the town of Mystia. They're not running out of names, are they?
No.
Not running out of names at all. We do get the twins, Palon and Palon or something like that, and they travel with us as we try to get rid of the darkness in us and become a paladin. What a noble quest. So we go to, what's it called? The Mountain of Ordeals or something? That sounds right.
Yes.
Something like, it's like the Mount Ordeal. Head up the mountain, and we end up at the base, or at the peak of the mountain, into a boss fight. We fight an undead guy. First form wasn't too tough. You then walk 2 steps and you go into his next form, and he sucks ass. It's the first time playing this. Didn't save after the first form, so had to redo it. It was really unfortunate. Really unfortunate. But finally we defeat him. We go inside the Paladin Temple, and you go in as the Dark Knight. Or you're not a Dragon Knight, you're just Dark Knight, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever use that spell, Darkness?
Yes,
and it,
but in my version it does different things than yours.
What?
And what does it do in...
So I use it, but it takes away my health power, and it does like a magical shooting attack.
Okay, so, but it hits everybody, right? Yeah, okay. And then that's the same thing as it does in the Super Nintendo version, but in the DS version, that it lowers your health, but it doubles your attack.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So, yeah, it's nice. I use it at bosses and mostly focus my healing on Steve Eiserman.
Yeah, fair enough. So, from there, we're in the Paladin Temple. You walk up, and you become a paladin. So a white sword comes down, and it's like, my son, you are really not a dark bad guy. And you're like, what? And then the darkness comes out of the mirror, and you have to fight it. How do you win this fight? So I have a note. I tried this fight 4 times. I have no idea. There was one where I literally used all my healing items. I used all my magic spells. I used everything I had and didn't kill him. And then there was one, like the version I just ended up defending. I think I just pressed like defend, and I finally won.
Yeah. I think in mine, I just defended the whole time, and then I used potions on myself when I needed them.
So it says something about there's like this little prompts, and it says like a real paladin knows that sometimes you fight better when you drop your sword, and I think that means like just don't attack to win.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so, because it's as a paladin, or as like the Dark Knight, you would go immediately to attacking, but because you're the good guy now, you're gonna not attack. And that's how you defeat the darkness inside yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah. So, but now you're a paladin, and you get to start at level 1. That sucks. Oh my goodness. So, I grinded a bunch, the paladin at Mystia, so I basically went outside with Palom and Polom do you have Yang? Maybe you don't have Yang. Maybe it's just those guys and you. But I grinded up to, must have been like level 15 or something like that. Like, I spent a lot of time just walking around and healing and going and saving and using the inn and then going back outside and like using all my magic ups. So it's good times, you know? Good times grinding, because they start your characters off at ridiculously low levels.
Yeah, and it's weird that they reset it, but I like that you have 800 health.
Yeah.
As a level 1. You're like, I'm glad that my level 1 Steve Eiserman has more health than every other character in my party.
Yeah. So. That's fair. So now that we are a super powered white knight paladin, hooray, the little guys at Mystia allow us to take the Demon Road, which is a warp to Baron, which is the first town we went to. Well, maybe this is when like you think you played to, when you went back to Baron.
I feel like yes.
So basically you played it until we stopped for this podcast, and then alright, fair enough.
Either that or I just became the paladin.
So we find Yang.
Should be getting my wires crossed.
So we're back in Baron. We find Yang. We have to defeat him. He was under some type of spell from the bad guys, Golbez. We sneak into the castle. At this point, down in the water docks, I grinded my team so they were all at level 22 before I went to go fight the 2 bosses in the castle. Once you fight like your friend, he's something like forget what he is. He's a knight or something. He comes up and he's like, I'm gonna work with you, and it's like you walk 2 steps and you're like, you're a bad guy, aren't you? And he's like, I certainly am.
Yeah, he is a whatchamacallit, I want to say like a lancer or something like that, or a dragoon or something like that.
And then you have to fight the king, so you go into the chambers. He's like, I'm not really the king, I've been this evil monster the whole time. And you're like, yeah, I know, just like the other guy. You kill him. I don't think he was too tough. Sid comes out, joins your party. Palor and Palom, those are their names, sacrifice themselves by kind of stopping the wall and turning themselves to stone. And then we get our airship. To be continued.
Yeah, I don't know why they just didn't use teleport and warp, but
sacrifice, loss. Yeah.
Petrifying each other is a better idea, and you're like, bummed if we use a gold needle. No effect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, come on now. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I would say one of my biggest... So that's kind of where we played up to for this game. We're planning at least 1 or maybe even 2 more parts to this game. I don't know. See what happens when we kind of keep playing. And, yeah. The one annoying thing is just the character. So far we've had Rosa, who's left. We've had Rydia, who's left. We have Yang again, but we've got these 2 little white and black mages that we've lost. Kane has come into our party. He's left. And we've had a Dark Knight who then became a paladin. I find the party just gets swapped around a lot for kind of convenience sakes of the story, and to kind of switch it up and to introduce new characters. And it's kind of annoying. I don't know if there's I've never played to the point where you get your whole party and you can actually pick who you want, but that's kind of how I'm feeling about it right now.
I'm very much in the same boat. I don't see the point of switching everybody around. It doesn't, I get that it's kind of neat that we were playing with this party on a long story, but it doesn't feel like you can get attached to anybody, because everybody's just going to come and go willy-nilly.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, besides Steve Eiserman, we're kind of just like, oh, hey, I don't want to grind with anyone or give anyone good shit, because Lord knows they could literally just disappear around the corner. And sometimes you do that. Like, the first time you play through these games and you lose these characters and you just, I'd be that kid that would go get Kane and be like, oh sweet, let me give him some good shit, and then walk out the room and be like, oh, now you're not part of my team anymore.
No, I feel you. Yeah, like I do think though that this title is the definitive JRPG experience. If you wanted to play JRPGs, you're not sure if you like them, play this game, because this is basically where everything comes from. There's bad kings, there's betrayal, there's friends, there's parties. It's basically the definitive model. The art style and game mechanics are perfect. The overall we're kind of talking about the party and how it's kind of annoying. I get that it adds to the overall immersion of the world, but I don't know, it kind of hurts a little bit with character development in a bit, and the antiquated menu system is a bit tiresome. I hate wasting time and money in RPGs, and this game does that a lot. I
mean, it's one of those things where, like, if you are a big JRPG fan, you'll love all these little things. Yeah. But if you're in the slightest bit of, like, kind of hate grinding and kind of hate having to burn through really expensive items just to always be broke, what it feels like, it's never like, oh, we're gonna make sure that you never have money or you have just enough. It's like, just why would you do this? Make it just a little bit more forgiving. And the scary thing is, there is hard versions of this mode. Like, me and you are both playing you're playing on PSP and I'm playing on the DS, so we actually got the harder version.
Oh, interesting.
But the original Super Nintendo version is actually considered to be the easy version.
Yes, very true.
Of what's in Japan. So I feel like probably playing, if we were going to play like on the original, we'd breeze through this and it wouldn't be too bad. So I don't know, it's a fine balance. I lean more on the side of, I hate all the intricate, like, having to get bogged down with little bullshit. So I don't know, it's a love-hate relationship. I love what it builds to, but some of the, like, extra stuff in there just could be slimmed down and streamlined.
Yeah,
much better.
Very true. All right, so I guess our final segment, we got an Are You Buying It? And then we're out of here for today. I don't know when the second part of this series is coming out. I know we have a timeline of games that we're supposed to be playing somewhere, so I'm not really sure where this falls in. And rather than tell you guys it's going to be in like 2 weeks and it's not for 12 months, let's just kind of keep moving. I don't know. Might be a couple weeks.
Yeah, it won't be that bad.
Once I get back into it, I'll fly through it, and it's portable, so I can play it anywhere. I can take it to work and play it on my lunch break. So, all right. So, are you buying it? Are the 4 warriors that we killed at the beginning of this game the heroes from the first Final Fantasy game? Tyson brought this up back in Final Fantasy 1, and we see a cutscene at the beginning of the game. Are you buying it?
After watching my cutscene, I want to say no.
Yeah.
But it's totally possible, because, I mean, you could technically have 4 white mages, is it? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, Christ. Imagine that as a team. I just don't see that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right. It's kind of a neat idea, concept, but yeah, no, I don't think so. Then how about...
Yeah. It'd be nice if they had some black mages mixed in there, like 2 black mages, 2 white mages, and you're like, oh yeah, they could totally done it.
So then the next theory I have is the 3 faces of Eve theory. So all Final Fantasy games always show 3 characters that represent the 3 phases of a woman's life. In this game specifically, we have Porom, the child. We have Rydia, the maiden, and then there's Rosa, the mother. So the child, the maiden, and the mother, the 3 phases of a woman's life. Those are the archetypal women's categories, or in every Final Fantasy game. Are you buying it?
Who were the child, the maiden, and the mother in number 1? I'm just trying to think about that, and you're like, was there a kid?
Oh, I think it's like later. I think maybe from this one onwards. I don't know if there is one in the first one, but I mean, you've got Yuffie, Aeris, Tifa,
and then Aeris' mother, who's literally a mother.
Yeah.
And is a big character and ends up with the child through most of it. And if you want to call even Aeris the maiden, there's kind of that little line.
Well, then you've got...
Aeris looks after the child and gets taken care of, and then Eris's mother has to look after the child.
So then you've got
nobody else, like...
And then you got Final...
You might be honest.
And there's like Final Fantasy X. You've got the scavenger, like the Ravager girl, like she's the child. Then you've got the summoner girl, and she's the maiden. And then you've got the magician lady, and she's the mother character of the group. Interesting.
Could be.
Interesting.
It probably doesn't like, I guess for me to believe this, we'd have to make it work for Final Fantasy IX, because Final Fantasy IX really calls back to those early days.
Yeah. So you got Garnet, she's the maiden. You've got
her mother, who's a crazy...
No, but I think it's not just like a mother in the game. It's supposed to be the characters you control. So there's usually 3 female characters that are the maidens, right? So you would have Freya, the Dragon Knight. She's the mother character. She's a bit older, a bit more responsibility. She's not the love interest. Then you've got the love interest, Garnet. That's the maiden usually. Mm-hmm. And then finally there's Yuki, the little summoner girl. So just on the top of my head, I know apparently those 3. So
fair enough. But if we're gonna make this work, how do we make it work for Seth?
Okay, there's 3: Yuffie, Aerith, and Tifa.
I guess so.
Right. All right.
I guess that, I didn't want to believe you, but you're making it.
The fact I'm like, in every game there's always just 3 girls, and I'm like, one's the love interest, one's a child, one's like more of like a mature like mentor role, and you're like, yep, you're right. Fuck you.
And I keep looking at, like, I keep being like, well, there's 2 of them, where's the third? And you're like, what was that one? You're like, oh, I forgot about that one.
Yep.
Well, damn.
Yes, sirroo. Okay. We've got a couple more here. Genova and Lavos are the same species. Wait, do you want to put a pin in this one for next time? So we have at least 2 more shows. So I've got 2 more theories. Let's leave them. Maybe I'll have some more, substance for it. But just think, Lavos, Genova, same species. Maybe we'll talk about similarities, differences, go from there. Yep. There, we have a teaser. Finally ask Tyson, did we miss anything?
There's little things about this game. Like, they really like to try to play with the battle system. So a couple times when you're fighting, like, let's say a captain and 2 guards, if you kill the captain first, the other 2 guards would be like, peace, and like take off. Little touches like that. But I think we hit the beats, and this is a long sweeping story, so we're here to set it up that we're starting to go from darkness into light, and we're kind of, or at least our main character's taking the right steps. So
very true. Very true.
I don't think we missed anything. But
no, I think we're good. I think we are good. Plus, we have a whole other show, so if we missed anything and you're upset by us, Internet, let us know. Or if we listen back and you're like, oh, I forgot to talk about this, or this comes up, we've got a whole other show, so hooray. In closing, thank you for listening. You can contact Podtendo on Twitter at Podtendo Podcast, email us at podtendo@gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Podtendo. The music of Podtendo was used without permission and is property of Nintendo.